And welcome to Under Center with Kirk Cousins.
Cousins from under center, straight drop. It's another deep shot. Center of the field, caught it on the run. 20-15-10, touchdown.
How about your Halloween costume? Tell me about your decision there and what the other guys went with.
So during camp, in run blocking, I would move my feet really fast, and Rico started calling me Barney Rubble. And I actually had to do a PowerPoint presentation on the Flintstones and give them some background facts and stuff about the Flintstones. So it was only right for me to be Barney Rubble for Halloween. And believe it or not, it's really hard to find a Barney Rubble costume that's big enough for an offensive lineman. And then Blake Brandel, he's from OSU. He's a Beaver. So he ended up being a Beaver. Everyone calls him Beeve and makes Beaver jokes. It's hilarious. And then Kyle, he went to a Spirit Halloween store and was trying to find something for being like a tuba player. So he ended up finding like a Mad Hatter costume, and it was a size too small. So he was like about to rip the threads on it. He's carrying around the tuba. It was a good time. Finding
the right size for you as an offensive lineman has got to be tricky. It's pretty funny because they all came in with Halloween costumes, and they're all just about a size or two too small. But there probably wasn't a lot of selection there. So, and my favorite, of all the ways that they initiate you, from making you carry pads to order food to wearing a Halloween costume, I think my favorite one is the PowerPoint presentations. Anytime we hear about something that someone doesn't know about, like the Flintstones, if someone needs to get educated on the Flintstones or mask wearing or whatever it may be, Riley will turn to Ezra and say, we're going to need a presentation on that. And they have a short amount of time to turn around and have a PowerPoint ready to go. So that's my favorite part. They do a great job with that. Can you talk about the hurdle? You've done it a few times. It's fun for me to watch. I think it's even more fun for fans to watch. Talk about kind of the strategy there, or were you coached to do that? Is it something you do instinctually? And do you just kind of do it off of a feel of when you think the guy might be trying to cut at your knees and it's better to just go over the top?
Yeah, so in high school, I ran high hurdles, and that's got established. That's where I put the tool in the arsenal, and it was back pocket for a little bit. And I got to college, and my shins got beat up my freshman year. And my sophomore year, I just did it. In the middle of a play, just did it one time, and then ever since then, it just kind of started to click. And yeah, I just started to get the timing for guys.
Yeah.
I can't give away too much of my secret, but
don't do that.
I'm still trying to master it to a T, but it's a science behind it. Looking at, guys' hips and everything. So yeah, it's also fun for me to do as long as I land it. But yeah, it's something that I use to my advantage to avoid defenders going low.
Kevin Stefanski had a great coaching point because he did coach running backs at one time, and he would say, once you go in the air, you're on your own. You've kind of left my coaching influence, and that's on you. And whatever happens once you're in the air is on you as well. So
Exactly.
That's why you got to practice it and get good at it, because once you go in the air, you're on your own.
Yeah.
I know, Bob, you're a treasure trove of stories, of Sid stories, but if you could relate the one chance encounter that the odd couple of all time, Sid meeting Prince. Was that at the Super Bowl?
That was at the Super Bowl. So the story goes like this. So Sid was about 90, the famous Super Bowl that Prince played at halftime.
Miami, right?
In Miami, halftime with the rain and everything. So Sid calls me and he goes, I'm going to come over to the media center on Thursday. And he goes, I'll be there. He calls me in the morning and he says, I'll be there at 2 o'clock. And I go, that's not going to work. I'm involved at the Prince press conference. And he's like, well, I'd like to meet that guy. And I go, no. So, he can't hear well, and I'm trying to explain because he thinks it's as easy for me to set up as talking to the Vikings backup linebacker or something. He thinks it's that easy. I'm like, I can't get you a Sid. And I go, I'll just explain it to him when he gets here. So he gets there. And one thing, too, he's very persistent. That's another word about Sid.
Oh,
one of the most persistent people ever. So he gets there and he goes, I really want to see that Prince guy. And that's what he called him. And I said, and I don't know, I was crazy, and I just said, all right, I'll give it my best shot. So I have an official pass that can go anywhere and get backstage. He doesn't. So we go over it. I said, just follow me. And he just followed me through the first checkpoint. And Sid, we got in. And I'm like, oh, great. But then we got to the second checkpoint. And then I said, Sid, you just need to be quiet here. You need to just let me do the talking. I had credentials around the neck. He wasn't always good at being quiet either. And I talked our way through there with him. And I'm like, we're home free. But then we get to the third and final checkpoint. And the guy there says, sorry, sir, nobody goes beyond this no matter what type of pass you had. And I used my best sales techniques at that time. And I said, listen, sir, with all due respect, the guy who's about to walk on stage and the guy standing here next to me, 90-year-old Sid Hartman, these are the two most well-known people from the state of Minnesota. And he trusted me, and he let us through, and we got through, and Prince was walking down this hallway. He's about 20 yards from us, long ways, and he's just about to turn right and go onto the stage. There's 1,500 people at this press conference, and he's just about to turn right, and Sid yells, hey, Prince! Hey, Prince! And we get accosted by 15 security people.
Oh.
And Prince is at the end of the hall, and he turns his head real slow, and he walked all the way back to talk to us and talk to Sid for 5 minutes. He knew that voice. He knew who Sid was. And when they got back there, they talked about Minnesota sports, and they both went to the same high school, 50 years apart.
North High School.
It was an amazing story, and as I told it, it was kind of one rock star meeting another rock star.
So I grew up watching Dan Patrick anchor SportsCenter. And just as importantly, I grew up watching Dan Patrick star in This Is SportsCenter commercials. Do you have a favorite commercial that you did, or a funny memory of one? Because I took to those. I liked them, and I thought you guys did a great job in them.
Well, what happened was I went to my boss and I said, look, you promote every other show, but you don't promote SportsCenter. They said, well, we don't have to. But I said, why don't we? SportsCenter is the cash cow here. And then they said, all right, well, how about we hire Wyden and Kennedy, who did a lot of the Nike stuff. And they said, we'll bring them in, but you have to help get some athletes. And I'm getting athletes to go to Bristol, Connecticut, and they don't get paid. And I reached out to Grant Hill and Jason Kidd, and I said, would you do me a favor, come to Bristol and do a commercial? And the one I did with Grant Hill was when he's playing the piano in the lobby, and he's trying to pick up my spirits because I didn't have a good show. And it's like, dun, 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 dun. And Grant could play the piano. And then he had a tip jar, and I put the $1 in the tip jar. I appreciated that because those guys came in, and then everybody realized I want a SportsCenter commercial. The other one that I did was Lance Armstrong was the generator in the basement of the building. And my screen flicks on and off, and my computer, and I have to go all the way down into the basement. And then I open the door, and there's Lance, and he stopped pedaling. And I go, Lance, what are you doing? He goes, oh, I thought everybody left. I go, no, I'm doing my show. And then he starts pedaling. You hear the generator come back up again. And that was one of my favorites. But the one that we probably get more reaction to was I'm in the bathroom with Keith Olbermann, and we're putting our makeup on. While we're putting our makeup on, we're talking about tough guys in hockey. So, the juxtaposition of I'm putting on blush and foundation, and meanwhile, we're talking about tough guys in hockey. And we used to have to put our own makeup on. They didn't have a makeup artist. And so that was true. That was real. We'd go in there and we'd talk, and then we'd go do SportsCenter. But we had so much fun with those people, and their creativity was wonderful.
Yeah, you just pumped them out one after another. They were so good, so topical. It was unbelievable. So the touchdown pass gets all the attention. Obviously, you and I come away from the game thinking of so many plays throughout the game that have an impact that lead us to that moment. But talk about the touchdown pass from your perspective. I'll say that from my perspective, I believe when we broke the huddle that you were the least likely person to get the ball. You probably know that, knowing how I'm supposed to read that play. But, talk about your thoughts and what you noticed as you went through that play.
Oh, it's funny that you said that, because I kind of had the same thought, but I knew coming out of the huddle, it's supposed to be a clear route, right? And it's like, well, you still want to win on this route instead of just running aimlessly. And it sounds weird and maybe a little cliche, but it did kind of feel like that movie moment or that video game moment where time slows down and you hear the heartbeat. And it's kind of how it was for me. Just everything slowed down, and just tried to win on the route and put it exactly where it needed to be. And long story short, we made the play happen.
So Adam gets a lot of attention for being, Mr. Minnesota. He grew up here, went to college here in the state, makes the Vikings undrafted, and now has gone on to become a Pro Bowl player. But really, the story is the same for you. I mean, you grew up here in Duluth. You are under-recruited, and you end up going to Augustana in Sioux Falls and come back to the Vikings and have now been a Pro Bowler. So do you ever look back and just kind of pinch yourself as to how the journey's played out and how unlikely it was that it would end up where it has?
Yeah, a handful of times, me and my wife and I, Steph, will kind of just sit here and kind of just think about, like, it is kind of crazy, the things, how everything shook out, and where we are now as a family, and having kids, and just if this was 5 years ago, I wouldn't tell you this was going to happen. Wow. And that's about life is you kind of just roll with what it gives you, and God has just continued to bless us.